of course, selecting stuff from the 70s, but from sort of well, one is the outer limits of the 70s, and the other one is, I guess, the mid 70s. I cover the two ends of the decade, and then also get styles and genres that were similarly in dynamic tension with one another.
So, I was considering that these should be relics or sort of rediscoveries and also recommended. I decided to go transnational and contrast an English artist with an American artist.
I tried to choose fairly obscure titles, but really, and this is pretty much true every week, I just went on vibes. It was what I feel like talking about this week. Speaking of, uh, Ozzy Osbourne died a few days ago, and you know that hit me pretty hard, actually. Um, I've been a Sabbath and Ozzy fan for just about my entire life. So I this one just felt like an obvious choice. It felt like an obvious choice to do a Sabbath record. And given that we're looking for relics, I figured I would choose this one, which is a live record that not many people know about. It was released towards the end of the decade, but it's a show or a couple of different shows from 1973 on their Volume 4 tour. So this is kind of at the height of their powers. Um, the band disowned this record when it was released because they had some falling out with a former manager, and this guy somehow had the rights to these shows. And the band didn't want it released because the sound is not awesome, but it's rough and it's powerful, and and they sound good. There's a bunch of songs off Volume 4 and a couple from Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, along with classics like War Pigs and Paranoid. Probably the highlight of the show, though, of this record is Wicked World, which is sort of a bluesy tune from the first record. But here it it becomes a medley that includes Into the Void, Supernaut, a drum solo, another song that they played live but never released called Sometimes I'm Happy. There might be another song in there too, but it's 20 minutes and of just, a Black Sabbath fucking jam circa 1973. And it's awesome. So very, very worth hearing. My second record, definitely different, but also quite jammy, is this record from Amon Duul 1, or maybe it's just Amon Duul. Paradis Farts. This band or these various versions of Amon Duul grew out of a, sort of German hippie commune in the late 60s. And Amon Duul 2 would go on to do sort of proggy stuff. But these guys are firmly in like the acid folk kind of, psychedelic raga camp, I guess you would say. And that's definitely what these songs are. There's mellow flutes and some charmingly off-key singing, exactly the kind of hippie lyrics that you would expect from a record like this. And there's some Eastern style percussion, some sitar, some wah wah guitar. There always has to be some wah wah guitar on records like this. And the whole thing just works. It's a really good record, and I like it better than the more famous version of the band's more famous records that came later. So, great record. Erik, what do you got?
All right. Well, item number one would be Keith Hudson.
Oh, good one.
So Keith Hudson, flesh of my skin, blood of my blood. This is him. making his debut, if I'm not mistaken, in 1974. And what's great about this record is how dark it is. I mean, it sounds very swampy and murky, and also the mood is, for the most part, somber. I mean, there's a few sort of flashes of light. Let's see. I think the mood is captured by a lot of the titles, of course. We've got, besides Blood of My Blood, we've got Hunting, No Friend of Mine, Nocturne. So,
Hmm.
it's kind of clear that this is going to have a somber cast to it. And that's kind of unusual in reggae albums, which tend to be sort of a bit more sunshiny and bright. So it's really got it's got the sort of fogginess and that you have from dub, but deployed into somewhat different context. He kind of has this kind of uh, West Indian Gothic thing
Yeah.
uh, that is really sort of unique in among his contemporaries. The other record I chose is kind of unlikely. This doesn't seem to fit into the 70s at all, but it was. It's 1979. The Pleasure Principle by Gary Numan. And this is actually the very record that has everybody's favorite uh, radio hit Cars on it, which, which, if for my money, is a perfect song. There's no chorus in it at all. It just kind of is two verses, and then it just kind of takes off and keeps driving towards an endless computerized horizon. Um, but the whole record has that kind of creepy vibe to it of it's both sounds both alienated and alien. He's got this sort of flat, affectless. There's no guitar on the record at all, so it's there's the guitar being a sort of inherently, I think, a sort of warmer and more human instrument than the synthesizer. So this And then I don't know, there's the cryptic reference to, I guess, psychoanalysis in the title, which the pleasure principle. So
Mm.
and a great picture of him sort of striking a pose for the camera with pyramid power at work. But anyway, the songs here are uniformly good, and very well arranged too, to kind of take you into this kind of cold, soulless world of uh, of alienation. It's a great record, sort of it's just at a shifting point between the decades. You can still hear stuff in it, like from Brian Eno's solo stuff, or David Bowie, maybe, like the low era stuff. Um, but it's um, also pointing forward towards the 1980s and all kinds of music that I don't particularly care for, but that's in its, way. Great thing about Gary Numan, I think, is that he sort of is one with the machine. He doesn't seem like he's not somebody who's like coming to these instruments to see what they can do. He's just kind of one with them from the beginning. Or there's this organic quality, despite the lack of warmth and life. Item two, The Pleasure Principle by Gary Numan. So, Jackson, what's up?
In 1974, I was listening to this record, which is John Cale, Fear, and it was a clean break from the 60s. If anything, it was aligned with glam rock. It's a literate version of glam rock. It's got soft ballads, it's got hard but laid back rockers. And secret weapon here is Phil Manzanera on guitar and Eno on Eno. That's what it's credited. And there's John on the top of the refrigerator in full paranoia mode. Wonderful front cover. It really says a lot about the record. He always put great bands together this for his solo records, and this has magical, minimal interactions with the band. His voice is great. It's got a lot of attitude, presence, conviction, and it's a fear and loathsome record. So he's just really got attitude. It can really change your mood with some of these murder ballads and psychological wordplay and sleaze. And it's got punchy production. So the solos of, God, who else is on here? I just noticed Richard Thompson is on one song. And what
Oh,
Dino does really is he takes the guitar solos and he warps them this way and that way, and they become these stuttering messes of melody. For the post Velvet Underground records, John Cale is thought to have made the best ones over Lou Reed. And there's like three or four in a row. They're all fantastic and provocative. I keep this in my John Cale section. And this is an unlikely choice for me, but
Huh, look at that.
Wake of the Flood, 1973. When I graduated from high school, it was my coming of age. I was really on to different music when this record came out. I was into Henry Cow, Roxy Music, Eno, that kind of stuff. So I sort of missed this at the time and learned to appreciate it later because it's a really great example of the Grateful Dead sounding good in the studio. They had just come off these live records because their thought was they weren't really making the records of the caliber of their live shows. But this one actually proved them to be good in the studio. So at least the first song has a New Orleans sort of feel to it, uh, with this guitar and violin interaction. Jerry is in top shape as far as guitar. It's got a lamenting feel overall and sort of revival graphics as well. This is a new phase for the Dead. They no longer have Pigpen. They have two new members. So Donna and Keith got Joe, but no Pigpen. And Jerry and Donna's voices blend beautifully on this record. There's nothing extra in the arrangements. Um, in fact, Keith is the new keyboard player, is actually playing electric harpsichord on some songs, and it's very minimal, dry, and just right for the song. The band is tight. Garcia's vocals are in top shape as well as guitar playing. And if you're not an obsessive Deadhead fan, this might be a good place to start. It's an American Gothic classic. You know, is that how we describe the songs? I always wonder about Hunter Garcia songs. They're beautifully ambiguous, but there seems to be something about pre-industrial America, Western expansion, you know, like card games and murders and all that great stuff that happened before industrialization. So I keep this in my Grateful Dead section.
here.
Wasn't he called like the Dark Prince of Dub or something like that?
Sort of cave that's, full of bats and the records from the 70s sound the best.
They sound so good.
Speaking of the dead,
Cosmic Americana.
Gary Numan. Gary Numan, is that your jam?
My jam?
Yeah.
Living synthesizer sounds.